how special is it that Louisville Metro Police Department has a police surgeon?
Louisville Metro has the only full-time police surgeon in the country.
You're the only guy.
I'm the only one.
So when something like this George Floyd case pops up, you're a commodity. You're someone in the field that gets things that no one else can get. Have you done a lot of testifying?
Yes. Consult with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, police agencies across the country to assist them in the investigation of violent crimes involving living victims.
So when someone gets shot, stabbed, something happens to them, there's a car crash, and they want to look at the forensics of it, they come to you. So you're like the living CSI guy.
Living forensic medicine.
You don't like the CSI comparison, no. Probably. When you go to a dinner party and you tell people what you do, what do you tell them?
They say, what is a police surgeon? That's a term they've never heard of. And what I tell them is that Louisville Metro, initially the Louisville Police Department and now Louisville Metro, has been way ahead of the curve by seeing the benefits of having a physician trained in forensic medicine to assist detectives in cases involving living victims, living patients.
It sounds like a really intense thing. It sounds like you have to be really, really bright to do this. The average doctor or surgeon that probably could not do what you do. It's such a specialized thing. Is there a lot of training involved in this?
Yes. For me, it's been on-the-job training as well as a one-year fellowship with the Kentucky Medical Examiner's Office in forensic medicine.
Do you work on the dead as well as the living?
Sometimes we do. For example, if we're trying to determine who is the driver, who is the passenger in a motor vehicle collision where both occupants were ejected. One was clearly driving, which one?
And you can find the answer. Science will tell you?
We look at different things. We look at how did the vehicle interact with the environment, how did the occupant move, was there transfer of any trace evidence to components within the vehicle, and then what injuries did the occupants have?
How in the world did you get connected to this George Floyd thing?
The Minnesota Attorney General called and did an interview. They wanted to know what was my background in the investigation of strangulation, suffocation, in custody deaths. And we just did it on a Zoom interview.
And have you had a lot of experience in that aspect of your job?
Yes, a lot of cases of strangulation, in custody death as the police surgeon, and also as someone who trains police officers, doctors around the world in the investigation of strangulation, both fatal and non-fatal.
Were you hesitant at all to take on this role?
No. I think any criminal trial, justice is important. And what the Attorney General wanted was a physician who could explain to the jury the science, the medicine, and the forensics.
And when you looked at this, because you were involved in the case long after Mr. Floyd had been buried, what did you look at and how did you study to make your determination?
We've never had a case like this in the history of the world where we had videotapes from so many different angles. We had 4 police body cameras. We had bystander videos. We had police surveillance videos from other vantage points. And based upon all that, the audio tape, the videotapes, it was clear what killed Mr. Floyd.
And what killed George Floyd?
Mr. Floyd died of positional asphyxia, which is a fancy way of saying all the oxygen was squeezed out of his lungs and he couldn't breathe. The pressure on his neck, on his back, restricted the ability of his lungs to breathe in and out, to take in oxygen, expel carbon dioxide, and over the course of a little more than 4 minutes, he died.
And looking at your testimony, it was clear that you testified to that. Was it clear to you that it was a case of murder? Is that something for you to determine or to tell the jury?
No, it's up to the medical examiner to determine cause and manner of death. The medical examiner determined it was homicide. I certainly agreed with the medical examiner's opinion. I do believe it was a homicidal death.
When we talk about this case, I know that we have to be careful with what we're going to get out of you. We know that you're only going to say so much. Why is it that you can only say so much?
Because we have the second trial in August. So we can talk about what I testified to, but because we have the second trial coming up, we don't want to make any comments about that.
Doesn't matter how I ask it either, you're not going to answer.
That depends on what the question is.
But you're going to be, I know that the credibility, your credibility to be able to testify and to be seen as a credible source is important to you, so you're going to be very careful in trying to answer any questions I ask you that might be out of bounds. Why would you do this? Why would you do your job?
It's very important, whether we're dealing with an in-custody death, as we are with Mr. Floyd, or any case where we have a victim of a crime. It is important that the court, our judicial system, has all the information so that whether it's a judge or a jury can make those critical decisions about someone's innocence or guilt.
You must not be a very popular guy at the police department.
I
imagine that some of the officers probably aren't happy when you come around.
No, I think actually it's just the opposite. The officers, the command staff know that when Dr. Smock renders an opinion that is based on the facts and on the science. I've rendered lots of opinions that have assisted officers, detectives in the investigation of crimes. However, they know that if something is not accurate, something isn't justified, that Smock's opinion will be based on the absolute best science we have.
Were you involved with the Breonna Taylor case at all?
I was involved in the investigation of the shooting, the reconstruction of the injuries to Sergeant Mattingly.
What did you find of the Mattingly situation?
The bullet that struck Sergeant Mattingly's superficial femoral artery came in from the front and exited out the back.
Not everyone on social media believes that that is the truth. When they see this interview, if they hear this part of your interview with me, what would you tell those people who don't believe that?
The science, the physical evidence shows that the bullet came from inside the apartment, struck Sergeant Mattingly's left thigh, and exited out the back of his left thigh.
So there is no question to you about it's all about the science.
It's all about the science, the forensics, the reconstruction of what happened.
Does this ever weigh on you, doing this job, doing these kinds of things, and knowing that your role at the department doesn't always make you the most popular guy because you've got to come up with what the science is telling you?
Anytime any forensic physician, whether it's a forensic pathologist or a living forensic physician, our opinions are based on the science, the forensics, the medicine of what happened to any individual.
And so are you proud of what you bring to the department?
Yes, I think having a living forensic physician in-house assists the detectives in their investigation of any violent crime, whether it's a shooting, a stabbing, a strangulation, a traffic issue. It is a service. It's something that most departments don't have, and it's a benefit to the criminal justice system.
You're the only one in the United States, right? I mean, you're the only one who does what you do at a department connected to a police department in the United States.
Yes, that is correct.
Should other departments do this?
Yes, I think having an in-house physician, particularly one that can assist the detectives in the investigation of crimes, the application of forensic medicine to those living victims of crime, can only benefit the criminal justice system.
Convict the guilty and exonerate the innocent?
Whatever the justice shows, or let's try that again. Whatever the evidence shows, that's why we're there.
You've been involved in you've been in high-profile things like George Floyd. No one in Louisville knew you existed until the George Floyd case stuff. Honestly, there were very few people who knew what you did or the role you played or even paid any attention to it until this happened. So will the George Floyd
I don't think
case,
that's...
not, people in the department knew, but people in the community, there couldn't have been that many people who knew what you did.
No, we did not broadcast. The Attorney General's office did not release their list of experts until just before the trial.
And then your phone's been blown up, probably. What has the exposure from this trial meant to you, or done for you, or what is it? What has that experience been like?
It's really there has been no real change. This trial is just as important as any other criminal trial. We want there to be justice. We want the jury to have all the evidence to render an opinion of innocence or guilt based upon the science and the medicine.
Bottom line, when people see this interview and they say, who is this Dr. Smock guy? What do you want them to know?
Yeah. Dr. Smock is a physician who has been concerned with justice, has been concerned with living forensics his entire career, training doctors, nurses, police officers in how to evaluate the living victim who has been the subject of a shooting, a stabbing, a strangulation.
You see a lot of that here in Louisville. Are you involved in a lot of the shootings and stabbings that we've had over the last 2 years?
I'm involved in those cases where the detective feels that a living forensic evaluation is critical to the case to understand what happened to the victim. Is the wound an entrance or an exit wound? How far was the gun away from the victim when they were shot? Those sorts of forensic issues that a forensic pathologist would answer on the dead, I can answer on the living.
What's it take to get your blood pressure up? I mean, you are cool, calm, collected. You were cool, calm, collected on the stand. You're just the facts, and you're just rolling through this interview. And I've asked some questions that I'm sure have annoyed you, but you haven't shown that. And I mean, how do you stay so calm, cool, and focused?
It's my job.
And I got a laugh out of you, a smile and a laugh out of you. But you kind of do have a Sully Sullenberger kind of, just kind of an aura about you, and it's just this is the duty, this is what we do. Did you serve in the military? Did you do that? How did you become this guy?
It was all because of the Kentucky Medical Examiner's Office saw the need back in the 1990s, actually late 1980s, that there was something missing in the American criminal justice system. There were physicians in Europe who were trained in living forensics, but not in the United States. So Dr. George Nichols, who was the chief medical examiner, said, this is something that Louisville can do. So they created the first living forensic training program, fellowship, in the country, right here in Louisville.
How many people come to you every year to learn what's in your head?
I get students, residents, every year will come and rotate with me, so they too can learn this medicine.
It's fascinating. When the Floyd cases are complete, what do you do next?
Yeah. Write my books, train, teach. That's my passion, is to teach doctors, nurses, medical students, residents in the application of forensic medicine to that living patient that comes into the emergency department that has just as many forensic needs as someone who's dead, but they're alive.
And do you hope that by sharing your story and sharing your expertise that maybe other cities will follow Louisville?
I hope that the interest in living forensic medicine will expand, that we will find other emergency physicians who would like to learn this skill, learn this knowledge, so they too can provide justice in their own communities.
All right, hang tight because I just want to get